Hello everyone, my name is Caroline Kane and I'm a student studying criminal justice and sociology. And what I want to talk about today is the privatization of prisons. I want you guys to understand what private prisons are, how they came about, and what this could potentially mean for our future. For those of you who are unfamiliar with private prisons and what they do, let me explain. Okay, so as you may have heard, incarceration rates are at an all-time high, the United States having the highest ones in the world. In fact, the United States, although we only make up a small portion of the world's population, is housing and paying for 1/4 of the entire prison population. This is largely because of our tough-on-crime policies, especially pertaining to drugs. So as you may have guessed, we not only have severe overcrowding from all the arrests that we're making, but we are also spending a ton of money on our prison system. We spend about $70 billion a year locking up these offenders, both violent and nonviolent. Now, these problems of overcrowding and spending have led to the introduction of private prisons. Private prisons are different from the prisons that we have now because they are owned by large corporations instead of being state-run facilities. People are attracted to the idea of private prisons because they think it'll relieve the state from overcrowding and budgeting issues. Although they do provide more room, the whole saving money argument is a little misunderstood in my opinion. So as you now know, the U.S. government and taxpayers are spending billions of dollars on prisons every year. This money goes to the institution, medical care for the prisoners, food, utilities, etc. Private companies claim that they can build and run prisons more effectively, safely, and humanely as our U.S. government, though this claim is ultimately proven false. As far as cost goes, the cost of running a prison depends on a variety of factors. These include security level, inmate behavior, and the age of the actual facility, all of which are the same for public and private institutions. This leading to the question of where are these cost savings even coming from? Well, unfortunately, although these costs are modest, they are coming from reductions in staffing, fringe benefits, and personnel-related costs. Private institutions also pay new officers less and provide them with less training. Now, as far as the claim that facilities are more humane than state-run facilities, this is ultimately not true. It is proven that public facilities owned and run by the state actually have more access to education, work, and counseling programs for their prisoners. Now, these programs can be essential in the rehabilitation and reintegration of these prisoners into society, which is ultimately what we want. This being said, I like to say that private prisons can utilize these programs, however, they cannot say that they can be more efficient in getting their prisoners into these programs. The state can just as easily get their prisoners into these programs, if not more so. Another point brought into question through my research has more of a philosophical nature, and that is, should the government be delegating that much social control to private profit-seeking companies? The point of government is to protect its citizens, so would a private profit-seeking company really act in a way that is consistent with public interest, which really is a concern with private prisons who are under the control of a big corporation. A very significant difference between private and public prisons is that private prisons need to have prisoners in order to make a profit. They need prisoners in their cells in order to make money, which is ultimately their goal. This leading me to believe that they would not act in a way that's consistent with public interest, rather they would act in a way that they could make more of a profit. The self-interest of the company is a definite concern because the protection of the corporation comes before anything else. Under a specific section of the law, prisoners can sue correctional officers for misconduct. Rightfully so. Now, public officials are protected under qualified immunity, which shields state employees from liability as long as their conduct does not violate clearly established rights. Private prison guards, however, do not get this protection, and therefore guards in these facilities can be sued. However, the large corporation cannot be sued, meaning that the corporation is protected and is doing nothing to protect their employees from lawsuits brought against them. So now that you guys know a little bit about private prisons and the effects it could have on society, as well as its effect on our criminal justice system, this brings me to the point of why you should even care. Well, for one, these prisons are not humane in the way that they treat their employees and corrections officers. Correctional officers deserve a fair salary and benefit. They should not be cut short for the sake of making a profit for the big corporation. These correctional officers are doing the same work as the state-run employees, however, they are not getting the same salary and/or benefits that the state employees are getting. They also hold a greater chance of being sued and are receiving no protection from the corporation that they work for or from the government. Following this point, I would also ask, is it humane that these profit-seeking companies are getting social control over individuals in our society? When their number one priority is making a profit, should we really trust them to invest in reforming these prisoners to make sure that they don't come back to prison, especially when their profit is dependent on having these people in prison? This is a definite concern among others that I have brought up. And if maybe you are not as concerned with the humane conditions of the prison, think about the economics. Prisons do not save money. We will always have to pay for food, facilities, and programs in these prisons. The only people suffering from possible savings are the correction officers, who, as I have brought up, definitely deserve a fair salary and benefits. So hopefully from this presentation you have gathered that private prisons are not ideal. They cost just as much as state-run facilities, their employees receive less benefits, and are at risk of lawsuits. Also, the prisoners, whether or not they are getting treated correctly, I don't know, but their profit is dependent on having people in their prison. They may be sending people to prison or keeping them there just so that they can profit off them. However, this is a possibility. I don't know if this. So everyone, please pay attention to legislation happening in your state to keep private prisons out. There are some in existence right now. However, states are starting to realize that privatizing may not be the way to go, especially when you have questions of whether or not they're humane and essentially cost effective. So please go to my blog and Twitter to keep up on what's happening in prison reform and also to find out other potential solutions to deter prisoners from returning to a life of crime. Thank you.